Well, as you can imagine, given the news that we see almost every day in the headlines, I have bad news for you. But I think I've also got some good news, and I'll give you the bad news first, and then the good news, which is, I think, of great importance to the group of people here at this conference and in this country. The bad news is that the world is undergoing a series of massive changes in the distribution of economic power, the balance of military power, the operation of economic systems, and simultaneously as a set of social and economic upheavals within countries that are as profound and as far-reaching as anything that the world saw during the Industrial Revolution. And just to give you an example, in the United States, manufacturing and clerical jobs once made almost half the workforce, almost 50%. Today combined, they are only about 13%. That's a rate of transformation of the economy equal to anything we saw in the Industrial Revolution. These kinds of changes are happening all over the world. And given this mix of international power shift and domestic power shift, multilateral cooperation is becoming more difficult even as multilateral cooperation becomes more urgent. Politicians in each country have less ability to be flexible, to engage with other countries' leaders in creative problem solving, because all politicians are feeling enormous pressure and work within very sharp political limits. If we put all of these together, combined with the rise of an arms race ranging from nuclear to cyber to potentially biological warfare, I think the conclusion is clear that humanity will be very fortunate indeed if in the 21st century we are able to escape the kind of extraordinarily destructive warfare that humanity witnessed in the last century. And that, I fear, is a conclusion that every day becomes clearer, and we see as various powers test the foundations of the international system, we are coming closer and closer to an era of serious geopolitical confrontation that would end in war. But when I look for reasons to hope, why this dark forecast may not appear, the rise of India, I believe, takes its rightful place, as India takes its rightful place among the leading powers of the world. India's new presence and stronger voice will offer a way forward that can lessen the degree of danger that we're in. The clearest trend that we see in this disruptive world is a shift in economic and political power from the Euro-Atlantic theater of the world, where the dominant forces of the 20th century existed, to the Indo-Pacific theater, where we will see that theater dominating the politics of the 21st century. For my own country, the United States, this is actually not so much of a challenge or problem. We are both an Indo-Pacific power as well as a Euro-Atlantic power, and we will simply adjust. But an Indo-Pacific that is full of wealthy people, consumers, entrepreneurial business, and the source of technological marvels, from the American point of view, is actually a plus, and it's something that we look forward to. But the question is, what kind of Indo-Pacific region will exist? Will one country, which has a dominant role in the economy, which has enormous military resources, and is tempted to pursue a hegemonic role in the region, will that country dominate? Alternatively, will the effort to prevent the domination by one country force the rest of the Indo-Pacific, including the United States, into a coalition that might ultimately have to fight or threaten massive great power war in order to prevent the domination? And these are the two scenarios that we see most often discussed. where the Chinese attempt to become a dominant power in Asia either succeeds, much to the detriment of other countries, or can only be checked by a series of crises and perhaps very destructive conflicts. This, to me, neither of those scenarios is particularly attractive. And here is where I see the rise of India playing such a role. In 1980, the Indian economy was 65% of China's economy. Today, India's GDP is about 17% of China's economy. So the opening of this wide gulf between India and China actually helped create the imbalance of power in which it might seem to people in Beijing that this could be the Chinese century. China could become the dominant force in Asia, therefore in the Indo-Pacific, and therefore in the world. What has been happening more recently in India, I believe, is a serious national effort to begin to close this divide that opened. And certainly in the last year, we've seen the Indian economy has been growing faster than China's economy. But that India is moving now to try to develop its own productive forces, its own economy, so that the balance will gradually begin to come back into balance. When India and China, the difference between them economically and potentially militarily is like this, it requires a large group of other countries, including the United States, working very hard, putting a lot of diplomatic, military, and political resources into the struggle. But as India rises, more and more people, I think, even in Beijing, will realize that it's unrealistic for China to try to become a hegemonic power in Asia. Asia is too large, too diverse, hopefully in the near future too wealthy for any one country to dominate. As that happens, the sense of war crisis that we now see flaring up from time to time in the Taiwan Straits, on the Indian-Chinese frontiers, these elements of crisis, I think, we will see diminish. And what we can see in the future is, again, a natural balance of power in Asia. So that the shift of power globally from the Euro-Atlantic to the Indo-Pacific and within the Indo-Pacific to various countries will not be a destabilizing force pushing the world further down the path to war, but will provide the opportunity for the creation of a free and flourishing Asia, a free and flourishing Indo-Pacific, in which each country, India, China, Vietnam, Indonesia, many others, will be able to work out their destinies. In the meantime, India's leadership in making organizations like the Quad and the I2U2 stronger, deeper, and more effective is helping us all get through what is a very difficult and dangerous period of adjustment. Indian leadership in international politics, External Affairs Minister Jaishankar has called India a reformist rather than a revisionist power. This seems to me to strike exactly the right note. The international system needs to change. It needs to be reformed. But what it doesn't need is to be engaged in some kind of no-holes-barred power contest for power among different countries. So as many of the people in this meeting are working in business rather than politics or government, you may sometimes wonder whether the work that you do in business is it really as important as what we see diplomats and generals and others doing? I would just say yes. The work that you are doing in building up the Indian economy, building up Indian business, Indian capabilities, you are laying the foundation for a century of peace. And I would like to conclude my remarks, which I'm trying to keep as short as possible because I know we are all eager for lunch. I would just like to conclude my remarks by saying that when I look for good news in the world, I find myself more and more often looking to this city and this country, and I thank you all for everything that you are doing to bring that about. Thank you.